Ms. Hicks, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, sure.
Mr. Lahr, defense ready? Mr. Nelson, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring in the jury, please.
Judge, I'm sorry, can we just address one issue that I think the court may need to address before the jury comes in?
Hold on, Devaney.
My apologies. It has to do with that video that I believe the state is going to introduce sometime this afternoon that I just think the court may need to watch. I'm not sure what the court's position on that's going to be. It's a video from Publix. And the issue is that the state has two copies of the video. One is a shortened version that they have made clips out of, which we have no objection to the clips being made. However, in the beginning of that video, there is a highlighting, I guess, a spotlight, for lack of a better word, that's put on a vehicle that's coming into the Publix parking lot, I think, or down the road at least. From conversation with the state attorney's office, that spotlight was put into the video by the state attorney's office and is only in the shortened version, but not the longer version. So at this point, we're objecting to the shorter version coming into evidence. And I just wasn't sure if that was something the court was going to want to watch and perhaps we could address before the jury came in. Our objection is that it's essentially altered evidence based on speculation or belief about the evidence from the state attorney's office, and that invades the province of the jury.
Ms. Hicks, is that video going to be played for this next witness?
No, we're not going to get to that video today. And
I apologize.
No, that's okay. And I can talk about it with them.
Okay.
See if we can resolve this on our own before we.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was going to
No, that's okay.
That's okay. All right, Ms. Hicks, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lahr, defense? Mr. Nelson?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring in the jury, please. Good afternoon, members of the jury. Ms. Hicks, does the state acknowledge the jury? Mr. Lahr, defense? Mr. Nelson? Ms. Hicks, please call the next witness for the state.
The state called Nirali Jivan.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Your chair around there.
Ma'am, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
My name's Nirali Jivan, and that's Nirali, last name Jivan.
Thank you. Ms. Hicks?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, how are you employed? What do you do for a living?
I own Advanced Park Dental, well, 2 dental practices.
Okay. And where do you have, is one of those dental practices located in Winter Park?
Yes,
And can you tell us where exactly that dental practice is located?
it's on 329 North Park Avenue.
Can you describe the building that it's in?
Sure, it's a building right above Panera Bread, and we're located on the 3rd floor.
Okay. And do you have or did you have a patient named Jennifer Fulford?
Yes,
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
I previously shown with the mark for state's exhibit and for identification to defense counsel. Ma'am, if you could take a look at that photograph, not showing it to the members of the jury, tell me if you recognize that photograph.
yes,
And do you recognize the person in this photograph?
yes,
And this photograph actually was taken at your practice on September 27th, 2017, correct?
yes.
I'll sustain the objection to the form.
Was this photograph taken at your practice on September 27th of 2017?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, the state will move what has previously been marked for identification as state's exhibit and into evidence.
No objection.
Is that N as in Nancy?
M as in Mary.
M as in Mary. All right, what's been marked for identification as states M is without objection admitted into evidence as state's exhibit. Is that 12?
12.
Now, how long had Ms. Fulford been a patient at your practice? Do you know?
Prior to that, it was, I'm not sure exactly how long.
Okay. Did she have an appointment on September 27th of 2017?
Yes,
What time was her appointment?
At 9 o'clock.
And did you personally see Ms. Fulford on September 27th of 2017?
Yes.
Do you know about what time she arrived?
Around 8:50, 52 or so.
Now, was this just a general cleaning or was something else going on?
No, that was her regular cleaning.
And this photograph that has now been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 12, this photograph was taken at your practice that day?
Yes.
So would this be exactly how Ms. Fulford looked when she was at your dental practice on September 27th of 2017?
Yes.
About how long was she there?
About an hour.
And so do you know about what time she left?
We checked her out like around 9:45, 10 o'clock was around 10, yeah, around 10 was like when she actually walked out.
Okay. And can you tell us about her demeanor while she was there at your dental practice that day?
She was great. It was just a normal, like, checkup, happy, healthy.
Okay. And anything out of the ordinary?
No.
All right. Now, prior to coming into court today, did I show you a video from your building?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit N into evidence by stipulation of the parties.
All right, without objection, what's been marked as State's N for identification is admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit, is that 13? State's Exhibit 13.
Judge, at this time, the state would request permission to publish this as a short video that will play on the screen.
All right, Madam Clerk's labeled it, you can publish it.
May have just a moment to connect. Judge, may my IT guy come around and help me?
Yes, the exhibit's up here, though.
It's actually already in my computer. I gave the envelope to the clerk, but the disc itself is actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Ma'am, do you recognize the images in that video?
Yes.
And do you recognize that to be the the building where the dental office is held?
Yes.
Okay. The first clip, which I could replay if you needed me to, the first clip, where is that located in your building?
That's our lobby downstairs on the first floor.
And the second clip where we see her coming off of the elevator, where is that?
I was on the third floor.
Okay, and did you recognize the person in that video? And who was that?
That was Jennifer.
Okay, is that how she looked on September 27th of 2017?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
I have no question.
All right, doctor, you can step down. Ms. Hicks, please call the next witness for the state.
Yes, Your Honor, if I may have one moment. The state calls Janet Grimm.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Ma'am, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
I'm Janet Grimm, Janet Grimm.
Thank you. Ms. Hicks.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
How are you employed?
I own Flamingo Framing in Orlando,
And what is Flamingo Framing? What do you do?
picture framing company.
Okay. You're an art lady.
I'm an art lady.
Okay. Do you know a man named Reed Berman?
I do.
Was he a client of your business?
Yes,
Had you done work at his house?
yes,
You're familiar with his house at 175 Webster Avenue in Winter Park?
very well.
Prior to September 27th of 2017, you had done work at that location?
Yes,
How many times?
twice,
And on those occasions, had you had the opportunity to meet a woman named Jennifer Fulford?
yes,
How many times had you met Jennifer prior to the 27th of September?
both times that I'd been in. She was the main contact I had.
Okay, so she was your contact person?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes,
All right, and sorry, we have court reporters who are taking down everything we say, so it needs to be yes and no. Thank you. All right, were you scheduled to do work at Reed Berman's house on September 27th of 2017?
yes, we were delivering.
Okay, that was my next question. So what was the plan? What work were you supposed to be doing at the house that day?
We were delivering pictures, art that he had us frame, and we were going to go hang them.
Okay, so you, and I'm assuming you keep saying we, a business associate of yours?
My helper.
Okay, and you were going to go into his house to hang the artwork?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so prior to September 27th, had you worked out a plan with Jennifer Fulford regarding how you would get in contact about coming over that day?
The week before.
Okay, and so please tell the jury, what was the plan that you and Jennifer had worked out?
That she was going to the dentist, and when she was done, she was going to call me and tell me that she was on her way home.
Okay, and what would that indicate to you, that she was on her way home? Would that mean that you could then come over to do the work?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We had the car packed and we were ready to go.
Okay, so you were planning on going there that day?
Oh, yes, we were all ready.
All right, and so did Jennifer in fact contact you on September 27th in accordance with the plan? Did she call you on her way home from the dentist?
Yes, before she left the dentist, she called. I didn't get that call right away because I was really busy.
Okay, we'll get to that in 1 second. How many times did you have multiple missed calls from her that morning?
Yes,
Do you know how many missed calls you had from her?
about 3.
And on one of those calls, did she leave you a voicemail?
Yes, saying that she was going
Okay.
home.
Objection, non-responsive, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection to non-responsive.
Okay. In one of those calls, did she leave you a voicemail?
Yes,
All right. And in that voicemail, did she indicate that it was okay for you to start heading over to the house?
Yeah.
Objection, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection as to the truth of the matter asserted, but overrule it to the effect it may have had on the listener.
Now, you missed all 3 of those calls as well as the one where she left the voicemail, correct?
yes,
Ultimately, did you get the voicemail from her?
yes,
And at some point, did you give her a call,
yes.
right? And since we're talking about your cell phone, can you please give us your cell phone number?
407-748-1548.
And is that the same cell phone number that you had back on September 27th of 2017?
Yes,
Now, you said you had the missed calls, the voicemail. You ultimately called Jennifer. When you called her, did she answer?
no,
Sorry to interrupt.
Sir?
Could counsel approach?
Ms. Court?
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so you gave us your cell phone number. And so you said that you had the 3 missed calls, the 1 voicemail, and then you called Ms. Fulford.
Objection, leaving.
Sustain to the form.
Did you call Ms. Fulford after the 3 missed calls?
yes, yes, I called her.
And when you called her, did she answer?
No,
Okay. Did she subsequently call you shortly after you called her when she didn't answer?
yes, very soon after.
Okay? Can you please tell the jury, what was her demeanor like when she called you?
She was very, very upset. She had a very panic in her voice. She told us not to come, that Oliver was,
Objection, non-responsive.
I'll overrule the objection.
So my question to you was, what was the tone of her voice? What was her demeanor? Without
was
telling us
talking-
what she said yet, tell us the tone of her voice and her demeanor.
the word that I can, panic.
Okay? Now, please tell us what it is she said to you.
She said that Oliver was sick and that she had to go to the school and pick him up.
Okay? Did she say anything else?
She told me not to come.
Okay. So despite the plan that you had with her earlier and despite the earlier voicemail, was she now calling you to tell you not to come to the house?
Yes.
Did you ever hear from her again?
No.
And did you ever go to the house that day?
No.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Cross-examination.
No, cross-examination.
All right, ma'am, you can step down. All right, Ms. Hicks, please call the next witness for the state. Sure.
Judge, prior to the state calling its next witness, the state would move into evidence what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit V as in Victor. This is by stipulation of the parties.
V as in Victor.
Yes.
Mr. Lahr?
No objection.
All right, without objection, what's been marked for ID as State's V is admitted into evidence as 14?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 14.
Judge, this is a stipulation that the state would request the court read to the jury.
Mr. Lahr, any objection? Stipulation, the Assistant State Attorney Kelly Hicks and Defendant Scott Edward Nelson, as well as his lawyer Robert Lahr, stipulate that State Exhibit 14 is a FedEx tracking slip for a package addressed to Reed Berman and delivered to 175 East Webster Avenue, Winter Park, Florida, on September 27th, 2017 at 11:30 a.m.
In addition, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit A.J. into evidence. The state previously filed an intent to rely upon a business record certification.
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as State's A.J. is admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 15.
And at this time, the state would call Steve
Ceynowa to the stand.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
First name Stephen, last name Ceynowa, Ceynowa.
Thank you. Ms. Hicks?
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Can you please tell us how you are employed?
I am the president and owner of TLC Electronics Incorporated.
And what is TLC Electronics Incorporated?
We are a low voltage electrical contractor in the state of Florida.
And do you handle the installation and maintenance of home alarm systems?
Yes,
All right. And are you familiar with a man named Reed Berman?
I am.
Was he a customer of yours?
Yes.
And how long has he been a customer of yours?
Since February 5th of 2015 to be exact.
And so he was a customer of yours on September 27th of 2017.
Correct, and still currently is.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the alarm system that he has in his home?
I am.
Were you the one who installed that alarm system?
Not the original system. The original system that was in place was installed by another company. Reed had hired us to come in and kind of update the system and get a couple other features that he was looking to have with it.
And so just so we're clear, we're talking about his home at 175 East Webster Avenue in Winter Park, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, is the alarm system that he has in his home today, June 24th of 2019, different than the alarm system that he had back on September 27th of 2017?
It is different now versus that particular date and time, yes.
Has he made some upgrades since these events happened?
Yes, I've definitely done quite an extensive upgrade to the system since the event.
Okay. When we're talking here today, I want to make sure that we're clear. I want to talk to you about the alarm system that he had in place on September 27th of 2017, okay? All right. So I want to start with video cameras. Did he have any video cameras on the inside of his home on September 27th?
At that particular time, no.
Okay. How about on the outside of his home? Did he have any video cameras on the outside of his home?
Yes, we did upgrade a couple of older existing cameras when we did the original upgrade back in 2015.
Okay. So on September 27th of 2017, how many video cameras or surveillance cameras did he have on the outside of his home?
There was a total of 2.
And can you tell us just generally what they were capable of capturing? What was their field of view?
Basically just looking at 2 side entry gates on 2 different sides of the property.
I'm assuming from the front yard into the backyard?
One to the front, yeah, both go into the backyard, just at 2 different locations.
Okay. Now, on September 27th of 2017, were those 2 outdoor cameras operational?
Those 2 outdoor cameras were operational, yes.
Okay. And after the events that occurred on September 27th at Mr. Berman's home, were you requested to check the surveillance system to see if any video had been captured by those 2 outdoor surveillance cameras?
Yes, I was asked to see if we could retrieve any sort of video footage from those existing cameras there. At the time, the 2 cameras were in an off position.
Sustain the objection.
All right. So you were asked to check for any surveillance video?
Correct.
And tell us the results of your check.
That the cameras had not been actually on and recording since prior to the incident. I think it was around May or June. There had been no video clip recordings ever done because the cameras are able to be turned on and off. So, as far as could have been something, anybody particularly.
Okay. So were you able to ascertain why they hadn't been recording for several months?
I wouldn't know the answer or reason why that wouldn't be. I know that the cameras were functionally were off.
Okay. So was there any surveillance footage from those outdoor cameras that captured anything on September 27th of 2017?
No, ma'am, there was not.
All right. So no indoor cameras, outdoor cameras didn't capture anything. They weren't functioning at the time. So was there any surveillance footage from the Mr. Berman's alarm system from September 27th of 2017?
No, there was not.
Okay. Now, can you please tell the jury how his alarm, well, before we get to that, what company monitors his alarm system? How does his alarm monitoring work?
So there's kind of 2 in essence. The actual monitoring service is a company that's here locally out of Longwood, Florida, called CMS. They actually handle all signals received by the alarm system.
Okay, so would that be the company that if the alarm went off would call 911 and that's
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Is there another company that's
So
involved?
the other service that exists on the system and still currently is Alarm.com, is a cellular communicator. It's designed to wirelessly, via cell towers, transmit signals and forward them to the monitoring station.
Okay. What is your company's relationship with Alarm.com?
We are a dealer for them.
Okay. So are you familiar with how they operate?
I am, yes.
You're familiar with how they keep their records?
I am. Mm-hmm.
And are you familiar with looking at their records and interpreting their records?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to get to the records in a few minutes, but before we do, I want to go back to talking about Mr. Berman's alarm system. We've talked about video. Now I want to talk about sort of the non-video aspect of his alarm system.
Okay.
Can you please tell the jury what sensors or monitoring did he have on his house?
Basically, the kind of the scope of the system is all the operable doors and windows around the property have hardwired contact sensors on them. You're able to tell, if something's open or closed. Kind of the purpose of upgrading was to just elaborate on how extensive that is on a system. We kind of break things down to make it easier to figure things out when it comes to dealing with alarm signals.
Okay. How many doors does he have in his home that are with an alarm aspect to it?
Let's see. He's probably got there might be about 6 to 8 doors, some of which are sliding doors. So, I mean, we could potentially be 2 sensors on a single opening, really.
I'm going to show you what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 6. Look at the monitor there.
Yep.
You recognize this door?
I do.
And this is the front door to Mr. Berman's home?
It is.
And is this door part of his alarm system?
Yes.
Tell us how. What do you mean by that?
So there is a recessed sensor, which means it's flush into the jamb, and there is a magnet that's actually in the door that senses when it's open and when it's closed, and it shows up on the alarm system so that, let's say if the door were opened, somebody could go to the alarm system and see that particular zone as being open, and they could then go to that door and close it and get the system back to what they would call a ready state.
Okay. And does Alarm.com, do they maintain records of when this door would open and close?
Correct. They do.
Now, does he also have a door that is near, he has like an exercise room in his house, correct?
He does, yes.
And does he have a door near the exercise room that goes outside?
He does. It leads out to the garage.
Okay. And does that door have the same type of sensor system on it that this door that we just looked at, the front door, has?
Correct, it does.
I also want to talk to you about motion detectors. Does he have motion detectors in his home?
He does.
And can you tell us, at the time of September 27th, where his motion detectors were located?
He's got 2 of them located on the second, both of which are located on the second floor. One in the hallway as you come up the stairs, and the second is located in the master bedroom.
Okay. You're familiar with the layout of Mr. Berman's home, correct?
Very familiar, yes.
All right. And the location of where these motion detectors are?
I am.
Can you just briefly explain to the jury how the motion detectors work?
The motion detectors that are installed are a passive infrared motion detector. Basically, they can detect motion by a body mass moving across the actual sensor itself. The best way I can use to kind of simplify and describe it is there is the infrared sensors that shoot out from the motion detector. It's kind of like the fingers here, and as they extend out, they get wider. So as you get to moving from left to right, it sees that motion coming across those sensors, in which it triggers the motion detector to open and close, which, if the alarm system were armed, would set that off as an interior violation.
Okay. Now, can you just briefly explain to the jurors what you mean by the alarm system being armed versus unarmed?
So the alarm system being armed would be something that you would do when, let's say, prior to going to bed, typically for most people that we typically, from a typical installation, arm that system so that if any violations happen, would actually set the alarm system sirens off throughout the house.
Loud noise, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's most of the time, though, when it's what we call a standby state, when it's not in the armed state
Okay.
or disarmed.
Does Alarm.com keep records of events related to the alarm system when it's both armed and unarmed?
Correct, it does.
So if the alarm system is not armed, but somebody opens the front door, is there a record of that?
Correct. It's called sensor activity monitoring.
And same question with respect to the motion detectors. Would Alarm.com's records indicate if a motion detector was activated, even if the alarm system is not armed?
It would.
Is it possible, you being familiar with how the alarm system is set up and where these motion detectors are, is it possible to go upstairs into let me back up. Is Mr. Berman's master bedroom located on the second floor?
It is located on the second floor, yes.
Is it possible to go from the front door of his house into his master bedroom without tripping the motion detector that's in the hallway?
Correct, it is possible.
Okay, so somebody could get into his bedroom without triggering that motion detector,
Correct.
but you would potentially trigger the motion detector that's in his master bedroom.
Yes.
Okay. I want to go through some of the Alarm.com records with you. These have now been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 15. And you should be able to see them there on the monitor in front of you. Now, I want to start with this one right here. It's 9/27/2017 at 6:51. It says here that the front door sensor opened, closed. Can you please tell the jury what that means?
Basically, that's a notification that's just logged in the event history of the alarm system that lets you know when a door or a window, and it could be, any different zone on the system. The front door in this particular instance just shows that a door would be opened. If you happen to just go in a door, open it, and then close it, it's basically what is that's indicating is just a simple open close. So there's no extended, period of time that it's left open.
Now, is it accurate to say that the different sensors in the house have titles? Like,
Correct.
that you name them?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So this specifically says front door opened, closed. Can you tell us what sensor these records are referring to?
The front door itself is the only zone that it would be.
So this is, not to kind of self-explanatory,
Okay.
but this record where it says front door open, closed, is that referring to, I don't want to zoom out, but this front door of Mr. Berman's house that is depicted here in State's Exhibit 6?
That's correct.
Okay. So does that record indicate that at 6:51 a.m. on September 27th of 2017, the front door opened and then closed?
Correct.
Now, we're going to see later that sometimes the records show open but not closed.
Okay.
Can you tell us how long would this record have given somebody an opportunity to enter the front door?
Yes.
Okay. So explain exactly what it means open, closed.
Okay. So open close would just be a very short time frame. Again, it's basically opening the door, walking through the threshold, turning and closing the door itself is really what an open close is.
And do you know about how much time can elapse before the system would simply say open as opposed to open, closed?
Specifically, I can't give you a 100% firm on the actual time frame, but just from experience of using the service.
I'm going to sustain the objection. You can try to lay a foundation.
Okay.
No, not you, sir.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to lay it all for you guys, all right?
All right, so can you talk to us about your experience with this particular aspect of the alarm system?
So in regards to the opening and closing?
Yes.
So in the opening events, as a brief, again, it's a brief momentary open and close of the door. After some time has elapsed, what I've probably experienced is the 30, 40 seconds of which, once that has been established, that it can notate it as a time change, basically, through the documentation of the, of all the monitoring.
Okay. So while you don't know exactly how much time somebody has as it relates to Mr. Berman's exact alarm system, based on your experience installing and maintaining other alarm systems, about how much time are we talking about?
I would say about 40 seconds to 60 seconds.
All right. So I'm going to move on to the next record, where it says second floor motion sensor at 9/27/17 at 6:55 a.m. And we should be clear, these, as we work our way through, we'll see that these records actually go into military time. It's a 24-hour clock, correct? Yes?
That's correct.
All right, so we know that 6:55, 6:51 means 6:51 a.m. in the morning, and 6:55 a.m.
That's correct.
So second floor motion sensor activated. Tell a jury what that means.
Basically means that a motion sensor was triggered, had caught motion on that sensor on the second floor hallway.
Now, and that was my next question. So you said that there are 2 motion detectors upstairs in his home. This would be the one that's in the hallway?
Correct.
All right. So obviously the records don't tell us who tripped it.
Correct. Correct.
All right. Would an 11-year-old boy be able to trip this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there some sort of like kind of pet protection or something so that
There,
cat runs by?
the motion detectors do have pet immunity of, I believe it's 30 pounds on those particular motion detectors. And then they also have a range from the detector itself of about 30 feet from the actual motion detector for coverage.
Okay. So this second floor motion, if an 11-year-old boy walked down the hall, you would expect it to be him to trigger the motion detector?
Correct.
Okay. Now the next one says the motion sensor is idle, and this is 2 minutes later. What does that mean?
Basically just says that at that point, from the time of detection of the tripped motion detector, from the time it detected that signal to 2 minutes later, now showing that there's no longer activity.
Okay. Now here at 7:12, we see master bed motion activated. Tell us what this one means.
Again, in the master bedroom, there is a motion detector that's in there that again detected motion activity. I'm not sure if there's a second
I'm going
line
to show
after.
you what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize this as Mr. Berman's master bedroom?
I do.
And is this the location, the room in his house, where when we see a sensor that says master bed motion, does that indicate that's the motion detector in that bedroom?
Correct.
All right. So now at 7:14, we see that the front door opened and closed. Would this be exactly how you described earlier, some period of time between 45 and 60 seconds passed, the front door opened, the front door closed?
Correct.
All right. Now we see 2 lines here, one at 7:33 and one at 7:41 that say video device.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please explain to the jury what these mean?
These are just self-monitoring checks of the 2 surveillance cameras that are on there. Even though they weren't necessarily on for recording, they are testing themselves to verify that they are available and online for access.
Okay. Now here again at 8:07, we see that the front door opened and closed again, correct?
Correct?
Now at 8:33, we see that the motion detector, another one of the motion detectors in the master bedroom, correct?
Correct.
All right, now at 8:35, it says exercise entry opened, closed. And you mentioned earlier that he has a door near his exercise room.
He does.
Where does that door go?
Basically leads out to the garage.
All right, and does this, where it says open, close, work exactly the same way as the front door?
It does.
All right, and And so if somebody needed a short period of time to open the door, get out, and close the door behind you.
Correct.
Now at 8:43, we see that again, the front door opened and closed.
Correct.
All right. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, if the alarm had been armed, would that be notated on these records?
Correct, it would. It would show as a pending entry delay.
Okay. But when somebody's leaving the house, if somebody wants to, I'm going to leave the house is empty, I'm going to set the alarm and leave the house. So the arming of the system, would the arming of the system show up on these records?
It would say who it was armed by and at what specific time.
Okay. And you had an opportunity to kind of look through these records before coming into court, correct?
I think I did actually submitted the original, which look almost just like these.
All right. And if we're not going to do it right now, but if we were to go through, we would actually see some instances where it very clearly says armed, right?
Correct.
All right. So just to go back very quickly, the first entry that we referenced here at 6:51, when the front door opened and closed, does that indicate to you, because we see nothing referencing arming or disarming of the system, does that indicate to you that when the front door was opened and closed at 6:51, the alarm was not armed at that time?
Correct, doesn't look like it's been armed.
I believe we were down here at 8:43, the front door opened and closed. And the next entry is 10:35, again, the front door opened and closed. So the fact that when the front door opened and closed at 8:43, and we don't know obviously if that's somebody coming or going, but if it was somebody leaving, they did not arm the alarm before they left, correct?
Correct, they did not arm it.
All right, and so if the entry at 10:35 of the front door opening and closing, although we don't know if that's somebody coming or going, if it was somebody coming into the house, they did not have to disarm the alarm, correct?
Correct.
Now, does this alarm have some sort of method by which people can be in the house and have the alarm armed?
Yes, that's what they would call a stay mode.
Stay mode, okay? And does this alarm have any, if this alarm had been placed in stay mode while somebody was inside the house, would that have been indicated on the records as well?
It would.
Okay, and we say, based on all the records we've looked at so far, we see no indication of that happening on September 27th, correct?
Correct.
Now, at 11:32, we see front door open, closed again. Same thing that you testified to earlier about what that means, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Now, at 11:47, 15 minutes later, we see that the front door opened. But this time, it doesn't say closed, it just says opened.
Correct.
What does that mean?
That basically means that the front door from the time it was open had remained open at that point, and that could be, completely wide open, could be just enough that the sensor was not showing it as closed.
Do these sensors have to sort of line up in some way?
Correct, they do.
All right, so if it says opened, like you just said, it means the door could be completely wide open, or at least the sensors are not lined up.
Correct.
All right. And this would be an indication that if the door was not opened and closed, it stayed open for some period of time beyond, based on your experience, 45 to 60 seconds.
Correct.
Now, 3 minutes later, at 11:50, we see that the master bedroom motion detector was activated.
That's correct.
All right, and you've already testified what that means, how that works.
Yep.
And so this is why I asked you earlier, it would have been possible for somebody to go from the front door to the master bedroom without activating the motion detector in the hallway.
That's correct.
And now 3 minutes later, we see idle. You've already explained what that means. Yes?
That's correct.
And now at 11:54 a.m. on September 27th of 2017, the front door is showing as closed.
Yes, correct.
What does that mean?
That means that the actual door, it would be closed at that point where the sensors are back in line with each other.
Okay. Now we have another couple of these video device things. I've already explained what those mean.
What is a modem ping?
A modem ping is the actual alarm.com module modem. It's basically the device that that connects to the cell tower. It does its own self tests.
And then the final one that I want to look at is at 1658. So for those of us who aren't real good, subtract 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
All right, so 1658, that would be at 4:58 in the afternoon, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and this says the exercise entry door opened and closed.
That's correct.
This would be the door kind of near the garage.
Near the garage, yes.
And again, it would be the meaning that they opened it and closed it for the time to get in.
That's correct.
I don't believe I have any more questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So you had indicated that the cameras that are on the exterior of the home, they had been not working for several months, is that correct?
Not that they weren't working, they were just not on.
So those tests that we saw show that they're capable of video, they haven't been tampered with, they just aren't actually recording.
Correct, yes.
Then moving on to some of the sensors that we talked about. Every time it says opened and closed or opened, that doesn't tell us how the door was opened, is that right?
What do you mean by how the door was opened?
Whether it was opened fast or slow or pushed or kicked, it just is no longer lined up.
Correct.
Okay. And it doesn't tell you who opened it,
Correct, it does not tell you.
and it doesn't tell you whether the door was opened from the inside or outside of the home.
It does not.
And that's all true also of the bedroom motion sensor, is that right?
Yes, you would not know who was actually walking in front of the sensor.
Right. Or
Correct.
which way they were walking or what.
Right, yes. That's not that specific, no.
Judge, may I just have one moment?
Yes.
Judge, I don't have any other questions.
Redirect?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Sir, you can step down. Ms. Hicks, please call the next witness for the state.
State calls Mark Winters.
Thank you.
Check your email, Josh.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Clerk.
It's Mark Winters, M-A-R-K, then Winters, W-I-N-T-E-R-S.
Thank you. Ms. Hicks?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
If you could please tell us, how are you employed?
I'm employed as a security agent for Wells Fargo.
Okay. And so what does that mean? What do you do?
I deal with all the physical security, basically anything that's not fraud-related, which includes, of course, bank robberies, threats, video cameras, alarms, pretty much everything. in that
Okay. You might need to talk a little bit louder. You're a little
Yes, sir.
soft-spoken.
Okay.
You could speak into that microphone. Now, how long have you worked for Wells Fargo in this capacity?
I'm approaching 3 years, not quite 3 years.
Did you have experience in law enforcement prior to this position?
I did. I retired after about 30 years in law enforcement. 26 and a half of that was in Memphis, Tennessee, as a police officer there.
Okay. Now, would you be considered a liaison between law enforcement that maybe are conducting investigations, and if they need information from Wells Fargo, would you be their go-to guy?
Yes.
All right. And were you contacted by law enforcement with the Winter Park Police Department on approximately September 28th of 2017 regarding finding video from an ATM machine in Winter Park, Florida?
I was.
Okay. And were you provided with an account number,
I was.
a relevant account number that was of interest to law enforcement?
Yes, I was.
And were you also provided with an ATM number? And what I mean by that, an ATM number related to a bank account?
Yes, I was.
All right. The last 4 digits of the account number that you were provided, was that 2692?
Yes.
And the last 4 digits of this ATM number that's related to that same account, 8278?
That's correct, yes.
Judge, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AI into evidence, the state having filed a notice of intent to rely upon business records.
No objection.
All right, without objection, what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AI has it been in evidence as
State 16.
16, State's Exhibit 16?
Now, going back to September 28th of 2017, can you tell us what was your understanding of what you were being asked to do?
I was contacted by law enforcement regarding a kidnapping or missing persons, I think it was a case they were concerned with. They provided me with the account number and a name and the ATM and asked if there was some video. They had information that somebody had used the ATM card at the Wells Fargo location and wanted to see if there's any video. At that point in time, I researched.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. We're just going to take you step by step,
Okay.
okay? All right, so you were provided with the relevant account number, correct?
Yes.
Once you are provided with the relevant account number, tell us, the jury, exactly what it is you do.
At that point in time, from the account number, I was able to verify through our banking records. It's called Store Vision Platform. It's the database we use to verify the account number with the person. I can also verify the account number matches the ATM debit card. At that point in time, I can also view the entire account history of any transactions that a person is doing.
Okay. Now, these are records that I would assume are kept in the regular course of business by Wells Fargo,
Yes.
and that in your role with Wells Fargo, you have access to these records.
Yes.
All right. So when you, on September 28th of 2017, when you did your research based on this account number that we have spoken about, tell us who the account belonged to.
It belonged to Jennifer.
Well, let's look at the account records.
Let me look. Yeah, if I can look at the information.
That's okay. May I approach you?
Yes.
Showing you what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 16. This help refresh your recollection of who the account belongs to?
It will.
Okay. What was the last name on the account there?
Full forward.
Fulford.
Yes.
Okay. So the account that you were requested to look into belonged to Jennifer Fulford.
Yes, ma'am.
And was it also a joint account? If you need to look at the records again, I can show you, but
It
with her
was.
husband, Robert Fulford, as well.
It was a joint account.
Okay. And so can you please tell the jury that on September 28th, what did you find based upon the records that you searched as it relates to ATM transactions on the credit card or the ATM card related to the account?
Once I was able to get the ATM card, I opened up our secured system, and it's called 7.3. It's just we have multiple video systems, but this particular branch is under 7.3. Did a transaction report, which pulled up the first transaction, I believe, around 12:02, 12:01 p.m., and then there was a second one around 4:32 p.m.
Okay. So we're going to go step by step. As I understand what you're saying, you found 2 ATM transactions on Jennifer Fulford's account on September 27th.
Yes.
All right. I want to talk about the first one. Now,
We were referring to records earlier, again, looking at State's Exhibit number 16. Now, these records go in kind of reverse chronological order, correct?
Yes,
So I want to look at the one that's at the very
Very
bottom. That one is the one that says 9/27/17, correct?
that's correct.
Sustain the objection to the form.
Okay. Do you see these records, sir?
I do.
And I want you to look at this bottom record here.
Okay.
And can you tell us the date of this transaction?
September 27th of 2017.
And what type of transaction was it?
It's an ATM withdrawal,
And how much money was actually taken from the account?
$300.
All right. Were you able to locate video of that transaction from that ATM?
Yes, I was.
And can you please tell us how the ATM video recording system works?
It's not a continuous system. When it approaches by motion or someone inserts or touches a button, the video will start recording at that point in time. It records all the video and it goes through a server within the branch, and that server actually transmits it to a database center. So when I log or copy the video or save the video, I actually log into the main system to download that video.
Okay. And so it is a camera that is located within the ATM?
Yes, there's two cameras total at all of our ATMs. One is what we call a surveillance view, which overviews the entire outside of the area. And the second camera is actually placed inside the ATM. It's called the customer view.
Sorry, the what?
Customer view?
Customer view. Okay, so it sees the person who's using the ATM?
Yes.
And you said it records based on motion. So if somebody approaches the ATM, does it start recording?
Yes, it'll start recording well before. As soon as it picks up any motion, it will record.
All right. And then you said that it records until the motion stops. Is that fair to say?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't immediately stop. There's a delay in that recording, but it,
Okay. And it then is saved onto a secure server?
yes.
And you have access in your role as a security specialist to access that secure server to retrieve video off of these ATMs? Okay. Prior to coming into court today, did I ask you to review several videos, but one of the videos from the first ATM transaction that you were able to locate?
Yes.
All right, so now you said that you were asked by law enforcement to locate that transaction. Did you in fact locate the video related to that first transaction?
I did.
Where somebody was able to take $300 out of Jennifer Fulford's account, correct?
Correct.
Sustain.
Were you able to locate the ATM video that is related to the transaction that we saw in the records that involved someone taking $300 out of her account?
Yes.
All right. And were you able to download that to either a thumb drive or a disk or something
I did.
and provide that video to law enforcement?
I did.
Prior to coming into court today, did you review what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AL?
Yes.
You reviewed that
I
disc?
reviewed that.
And this disc, does this disc fairly and accurately depict the ATM video that you were able to download from the first transaction?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AL into evidence.
No objection.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as State's AL is admitted in evidence as State's Exhibit 17.
We're going to watch this video in just a second, but while the computer's getting set up, are you also able to pull screenshots, still shots from the ATM video?
I am.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is it previously been shown to defense counsel? I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibits AP as in Paul, AO, and AN as in Nancy. If you could take a look at these three images.
Yes.
Do you recognize these as still shots from the first ATM transaction on September 27th?
Yes, these are the very same I provided to law enforcement.
Okay, and is the person in that, in those video, still shots, is that the person who was using the ATM on September 27th?
Yes, it was.
Is that the person who used Jennifer Fulford's ATM card to retrieve $300 from her account?
Yes, it was.
Can you please tell us, are there some indications on there about exactly what time this transaction took place?
Sure.
Can you tell the jury what time did the first ATM transaction take place on September 27th?
At 12:10.
12:10. Okay, so earlier you said it was 12:01 or 12:02.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so this would be
This
correct.
would be correct, 12:10. I just couldn't remember the exact time earlier.
Fair enough. So these timestamps on these still shots are accurate.
Yes.
All right, if I could have those, please. Judge, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as states exhibits AP, AN, and AO into evidence.
No objection.
All right, without objection, what's been presented to the clerk and stated on the record by Ms. Hicks will be admitted into evidence as the next number of exhibits for the state as determined by the clerk, starting with State's Exhibit 18.
AP would be 18, AO would be 19, and AN would be 20.
Thank you.
Judge, at this time, the state would request permission to publish the first ATM video, which has now been entered into evidence at State's Exhibit 17.
Granted.
Thank you. Sir, can you please tell us the exact location of the ATM where that transaction that we just saw in Exhibit 17 took place?
Sure, it's the location of Winter Park Downtown Branch at 275 South New York.
Thank you. I'm now going to show what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 18. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to start with 19. Actually, I'm sorry, before you do that, rather than having you switch back into Word, I'll just show the photos at the end. I'll stick with the videos for now. All right. Did you also locate a second ATM usage on September 27th of 2017?
I did.
And can you please tell us what time that transaction took place?
I believe it's approximately 4:31 p.m.
Now, the process that you described earlier about how you located the first ATM transaction, I'm assuming that same process would apply to the second?
It would, yes.
And this second ATM transaction, can you tell us where that took place?
The same location at the very same branch there at 275 South New York.
Now, in your role as a representative of Wells Fargo, are you familiar with the way they keep their bank records and supply them for cases such as this?
I am, yes.
All right. Now, are you aware that on the bank records that have been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 16, there is no indication that there was a second transaction on September 27th. Are you familiar with that, or you can look at the records if you need to?
I'm familiar with that.
Okay. Can you explain why there would not be a record of the second transaction on September 27th on Jennifer Fulford's bank records?
Yes, the reason there would be no record because no transaction was completed. The ATM card was presented but declined. Since there was no transaction, there would be no record.
Okay. So does that indicate that the person who used the ATM the second time was not able to get any money out?
That's correct.
All right. And so were you able to obtain video from that second transaction?
I was.
And since it was the same ATM, everything that you testified to earlier would apply about how the video is recorded and stored?
Yes.
And you were able to provide a copy of that video to law enforcement?
Yes.
All right. And prior to coming into court today, did I have you watch what has been, I marked for identification as State's Exhibit AM?
Yes.
You recognize that you put your initials
My
on
initials.
that disc?
Initials are there? Yes.
Judge, at this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AM into evidence.
No objection.
Without objection, when it's been marked for identification, it states AM is admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 21.
And this video that has now been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 21, does this fairly and accurately depict the second ATM transaction from September 27th?
It does.
And were you also able to obtain a still shot from that second transaction?
I was.
To show you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit AQ, you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And is that a photograph that you took, a still shot that you took from the ATM video that we're about to watch?
That is correct. Yes.
And can you tell us what time this ATM transaction took place on September 27th?
At 4:32 and 47 seconds.
4:32 in the afternoon.
Yes.
I believe you said at the same ATM, correct?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, the state would move what's previously been marked for identification as AQ into evidence.
No objection.
Without objection, when it's been marked for identification as AQ is admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 22.
Judge, at this time, the state would move to publish the second ATM video, which has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 21.
Granted.
Now, sir, when you were initially asked to do this research into this account on September 28th, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Were there any additional ATM transactions as of the time you initially were asked to do this? In other words, were these the only two that existed at that time?
At that particular time, yes.
Okay. Did you take it upon yourself to monitor this system, this account?
I did.
Explain to the jury how you did that.
Law enforcement asked me to notify them if there are any other transactions. So basically, I can log in to the system at any time. So about every hour throughout the night to almost midnight before I went to bed, I just kept on monitoring the account to see if there was some sort of transaction that took place. And eventually there was another transaction I discovered.
Okay. And when did that transaction take place?
I believe it's like the next day. I don't know the exact date,
Okay.
but I did provide the video, which would have the time and stamp when that occurred.
All right. Now, to your recollection, was that transaction successful? Was the person who used the ATM the third time able to get money out of the account?
Yes, I believe it was $100.
Okay. And would looking at Jennifer Fulford's bank records that have been entered into evidence as States Exhibit 16 help refresh your recollection as to the date that that transaction took place?
Yes.
Yes.
Occurred on September 29th in Jacksonville, Florida for $100.
Okay, thank you. So that was, so a third transaction, ATM transaction took place in Jacksonville on September 29th.
Yes,
All right. Were you able to obtain video of that ATM transaction?
I was.
Now, you've already explained exactly, now we're talking about a different bank this time, correct?
Yes,
Sustained.
Are we talking about a different bank?
yes.
Obviously not the bank.
It's a
not the-
different location. It's a Wells Fargo branch, but a different branch located in Jacksonville.
Okay, and was this branch located at 1601 North Main Street in Jacksonville, Florida?
It was.
And were you able to get the ATM video off of that?
Yes,
Now, despite the fact that it was a different branch, does the system still work the same way, the way it records and is held on the server and you're able to access it?
yes. It was the very same 7.3 system.
Okay. And were you able to download video from that and provide it to law enforcement?
I did.
Prior to coming into court today, were you asked to look at a video that has been marked for identification as States Exhibit AK?
Yes,
And you recognize your initials on this disc?
those were my initials. Yes,
And is this a copy of the video from the ATM on September 29th in Jacksonville that you provided to law enforcement?
yes,
At this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as States Exhibit AK into evidence.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as States AK is admitted into evidence as States Exhibit 23.
Were you also able to obtain a still shot off of that video?
yes, I was.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Sir, I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibit AR. You recognize that still photo?
Yes, I do.
This is a still photo that you pulled off of the ATM video that we just mentioned,
Yes,
September 29th.
September 29th at 1:15 and 51 seconds afternoon.
Okay, that was my next question, is what time it took place, and that was 1:15 in the afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, the state would move what has previously been marked for identification as States Exhibit AR into evidence.
No objection.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as States AR is admitted into evidence as States Exhibit 24.
This time, the state would move to publish what has been entered into evidence as States 23, the third ATM video.
Granted.
photos. We'll actually work our way backwards. Before we get to the photos, looking at what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 16, and these would be the bank records. And so we see the second record from the bottom here. Is that the third ATM transaction on September 29th?
It is, yes,
And it was for how much?
$100.
So the person in the video using the ATM is able to withdraw $100.
Yes, that's correct.
So let's work our way backwards, showing what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 24. This is a still shot from the third ATM video on September 29th in Jacksonville.
Yes, it is.
I'm showing what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 22. This is a still shot from the second ATM video at 4:32 on September 27th in Winter Park.
Yes, it is.
And this would be the person who used the ATM
Yes,
at Jennifer Fulford's car.
yes.
Now I'm going to show you what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 19. This is a still shot from the first ATM video at 12:10 on September 27th in Winter Park.
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 20, is that the person who used Jennifer Fulford's ATM in the first video?
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 18, a third shot from the first ATM video at 12:10 in Winter Park.
Yes, it is.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Yeah, we got that.
All right, sir, you can step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just a moment, we're going to take a brief recess. During the recess, you're going to continue to leave your notepads and your pens here. During the recess, you remain under all the court's instructions, including but not limited to the instruction not to discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please follow the deputy in the jury room. We'll bring you back as quickly as we can. All right, we'll be in a brief recess.